Have you ever met someone who could write the nicest caption on earth? Things like empathy, justice, love, all the buzzwords perfectly seasoned. And then you meet them in real life and it's like, oh, this is for an audience. Moral cosplay does damage. It makes good people doubt goodness. It turns real compassion into a punchline, and it makes everyone assume that if you're saying something moral out loud, then it's probably fake. And then we get stuck in this stupid modern loop where the fakers get attention, the good people get quiet, and the world of fakeness and platitudes gets louder. And nothing gets better, and that's a nightmare. Truth is, we don't need more noise. We need more people who live what they claim to be. So today we're talking about virtue signaling, or as I like to call it, moral cosplay, because at its core, it's LARPing for people who don't actually have or know what virtues are. Now, before somebody gets all emotional in the comments, I'm not saying that anybody who has a moral opinion on anything is fake or it's outrageous. That's not what I'm saying here. I love posting moral opinions just as much as I love trying to be a good person. The differentiator here is whether or not the actions mirror the words, whether or not you're living it or you're just talking about it for the attention. Humans signal value. We always have. It's part of being human. But that's not the problem. The problem is when the signal replaces the substance. It's when someone uses the aesthetic of goodness to buy the reputation of goodness without paying the price that goodness demands. It's like you're a North Korean general. You're covered in medals, but you've never actually seen any battles. You've done nothing to actually earn that. So today I'm going to give you a test that cuts through all of that. Think of virtue like training. You can wear the workout clothes, you can buy the protein powder, and you can post the gym selfie. But at some point, you either lift the weight or you don't, and your body doesn't care about the caption. Reality is raw like that. It rewards what's real. If you train to lift the weights, there's an actual cost associated with that. You have to go, you have to show up, you have to actually put in the reps over time. Wearing the outfit, buying the protein powder, and posting a picture doesn't require nearly as much investment. And that brings us to the first sign of moral cosplay, is that it's always free and it's always public. It's always for someone else. It costs nothing, it risks nothing, and it changes nothing. Because performance optimizes for visibility. It asks, how do I look? How is everyone perceiving me? Virtue optimizes for integrity. It asks, what's the right thing to do even when no one's looking? And real virtue almost always has a cost. And it's not always dramatic, but there's always a cost. Time, effort, money, humility, discomfort, accountability, something. So here's a filter. If it's always free and it's always public, be suspicious. And ask yourself, did this cost them anything? Did they sacrifice anything? Or did they do anything inconvenient? Because you can't build character with zero friction. And when you start using the cost as a filter, you stop getting hypnotized by the performance. You start respecting the people who do the quiet stuff, the boring stuff, the real stuff. And to be honest, those are normally the people that are holding the whole place together. Second sign of moral cosplay is they talk sweet, like an angel, but they live like trash, like a raccoon in a dumpster. They're sweet online, mean at home. They preach about kindness, but they're rude to a waiter, cold to their spouse, petty to their friends, and cruel when they're annoyed. Morality isn't a post, it's a pattern. Character is what you do when no one's looking, when there's no applause. And inconsistency is a dead giveaway, because a costume's easy to wear for an evening or for a couple minutes, but a lifelong pattern of behaviors, well, that's harder to fake. Here's a quick question to see through that illusion. How do they live when no one's watching? Because virtue doesn't just disappear when no one's looking. If it does, it was never virtue to begin with. It was just branding and optics. When you start valuing consistency, you stop falling for charisma. You stop mistaking good words as goodness. And that matters a lot, because some of the most dangerous people in our society are great at using the right words. They're very fluent in using the good words. And when they do this, they're able to sell you poison without you ever noticing. And you buy it because they're just that good at their branding and marketing. The third sign of moral cosplay is proximity. And people who are loud about the issues but they're never actually involved in the issues, that's proximity. They're constantly raising awareness, but they're never actually offering their hand to help. It's all about headlines, but never about reaching out to your neighbor. Performance moves towards the camera, and real virtue moves towards the mess. Real virtue gets close to that inconvenient person, that awkward conversation, the unglamorous work that most people just don't want to do, the real work. Performance loves a big cause, but that's because a big cause normally comes with a big audience. So ask yourself, are they helping where it's real, where it matters the most? People, relationships, community, action. And look, sometimes posting is part of it. Sometimes speaking matters. But proximity shows the difference between I care because it's beneficial for me and I care because I have a personal responsibility to. And when you use proximity as a filter, you find the real ones. The people who aren't looking to broadcast the good that they do. They're not showing up and buying 100 lunches and feeding them to the homeless because they have, the Google glasses on and they can record the whole thing. When you use proximity as a filter, you find the real ones. The people who are actually putting in the work, not because they need to announce it, but because that's who they are. Because the way they live announces it for them. Their actions speak louder than their words. So, tiny side note, if your entire moral framework fits in a caption and disintegrates the second someone disagrees with you, that's not virtue. That's an emotional support slogan. Big ideas don't fit on bumper stickers, but jokes do. This channel is all about trying to make life genuinely better. I don't believe that I'm a good person, necessarily. I tend to weigh my cons heavier than my pros when I self-assess, and I've always kind of been this way. I don't want to think I'm better than anyone else, and I also don't want to put myself down. I want to be as honest as I can about who I am. And in saying all of this, this isn't me trying to moralize to you and tell you that I'm better than you, because that's not the case. It's probably far from the truth. I think we all have the capacity for good and bad, every one of us, but I think that there's something that happens when we constantly look out into the world and we see people performing virtue, but we don't see enough good examples of genuine virtue. And when this happens, it can make us very cynical. It even happens to me. I see the videos of people walking into the restaurant and ordering 100 plates of food to go feed the homeless, and I ask myself, like, well, why is the camera part of this equation? Like, if they weren't making content, would they still be doing this in real life? And when that happens, I'm forced to ask myself, like, are you being cynical because you don't like this, or are you actually just overlooking the good that's happening? Like, at the end of the day, the homeless people are still getting fed, and this guy, girl, whoever it may be that's making the content, they're making money off of it, but it still doesn't subtract from the good. It's just, I'm becoming cynical, I think, because it's like a moral cosplay poisoning of sorts. I see enough of the fake virtue that when I see good virtue, it still makes me second guess whether or not it's real. And that's kind of what I want to avoid. And that kind of cynicism robs us of the ability to actually recognize and acknowledge real good when it happens. So it's important to point out that the term virtue signaling can be used as a weapon. Some people can say, I care about something, and we can respond with fake virtue signaling, which is lazy, because sincerity does exist, and people do care about different issues. Sometimes it's easier to just start with words, and then the actions will grow from there. It's like one foot in front of the other, small steps at a time. Don't judge sincerity by its volume, judge it by its trajectory. Are they actually putting in the work? Are they moving from slogans to sacrifice? Are they learning? Are they becoming consistent? Are they changing and improving over time for the better? The goal isn't to condemn other people, it's to prevent ourselves from being fooled. It's to prevent ourselves from being poisoned by the cynicism, by the fakeness of the virtue that exists in the world. It's to be able to discern between genuine passion and love and people who are just trying to use that as a mask to gain popularity. Before you post about kindness, send a sincere message to someone who you might have neglected recently. If you post about generosity, give something in private. If you post about patience, practice yours with the person that tests you the most. Here's the whole video in one sentence. Virtue signaling is moral cosplay when it's visibility without sacrifice, when it's aesthetics without integrity. So use the test. Cost, consistency, and proximity. Private proof before public proclamation. Until next time, always, stay up to no good.